Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are back with some brand new Mattel Jurassic World figures. As you can see, we've got two different sets of these Dino Reveal figures, basically the battle packs, and that's definitely exciting, gives us a chance to see more of them. Originally, when I had seen the first wave at Target, I assumed that these ones, because we had seen images of these, were going to be part of a future wave, but as it turns out, they are not. They are part of these two packs, and I did get super lucky because when I realized there were two different sets of these, I placed an order on Amazon for two sets just to see if I could get lucky enough to get both, and it appears as though I have, because it looks like, again, both versions are here to take a look at. You can see the box art looks pretty cool for these. I actually quite like it. Of course, we have the Dino Reveal logo up there. We can see which two species we have included in this box, and then of course you can see like some water splashing, as well as the fact that it says attack, discover, and heal. Now I'm pretty intrigued to see exactly how that all works, but definitely looks like it's going to be pretty fun. You see pretty much the same thing over on the side, and then a nice little shot of some water splashing on the other side, and then here on the back you can basically see how the figures start out and how they transition and turn to a much better looking version, I think, of the figures. And then of course we have the other version, which again shows you two very different species compared to what we had seen on the first box, but outside of that, again, the box art and everything is pretty much the same as what we had seen on the other one, just obviously with these figures as opposed to the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead, pop these boxes open, and we'll check them out. So once you pull the stuff inside the packaging out, you can see you have instructions as well as a sponge, and the instructions are obviously going to tell us what, oh my goodness, if I could get them open. Oh, and then I almost ripped them. What we have to do here, you can see again the battle pack and everything, which is pretty cool, and then you open it up, and basically it tells you what you need to do. You obviously have to open the different species of dinosaurs or other prehistoric creatures that we have included, and then, you know, submerge them in the water and everything. So we'll of course get to this here in just a moment, but we do need to take a look at the species that we have. And if those instructions are anything to go by, this set will definitely feature two dinosaurs. So let's pop this one open and we can see what we have. This is the Einiosaurus, and that's really cool. Again, an absolutely beautiful ceratopsian, and it's nice to have this one back again for another round of Mattel love. I think this is the third one that we've had for this species, so probably one of the more popular ceratopsian species actually from Mattel. And then the other one we have, this, which is actually really exciting to have back again, because this is the Piatnitzkysaurus, and this is only the second time that we've had this dinosaur in the Mattel line, so definitely excited to see this one come back again. A lot of the time, these like more obscure species don't get a re-release, so definitely happy to see this one getting the re-release, because it is a very underrated species and a super cool one on the part of Mattel. And then you also, of course, have this like little tub here, which is, I guess, our little battle arena. Yeah, definitely, because you could even see like gates and everything, so it kind of resembles like a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World sort of like battle arena, which is pretty cool. And then if we put that off to the side, of course, the other one has the same stuff included as far as the sponge and everything, but species-wise, we've got two different species over here. So the first one we can see is the Stygimoloch, and we can see it is basically a very dark green, similar to what we had seen on the Piatnitzkysaurus over there. And the second one is also quite exciting, as we have the Prestosuchus back, and this is only the second time this species has made its appearance in the Mattel line as well. So definitely excited to see this one back again. And as you can see, these are a bit different compared to the standard color change figures that we had reviewed previously, as those ones had sort of like a kind of skeleton gimmick going on where it looked like the bones of the dinosaur. These ones are basically just one plain boring color. In each one you have a green and then a light brown version, and that's it. So it's not like where the other ones I felt kind of sad, you know, changing the colors of them, so I actually went out and bought them again just so then I would technically have the skeleton versions. These ones, as far as the first color we see, not so great, so no worries as far as getting another set to just have two different color variants of them. So I'm going to go ahead and fill these battle arenas, I guess you can call them, up. And then we're going to go ahead and change the colors of these figures. So there we go. We now have one of these battle arenas filled with water, and we're going to take our dinosaurs, which again you can see one is green and one is a light brown, and we're just going to submerge them here as best we can. And we'll just keep them under the water while they change colors and transition to the new colors, if I can keep them under the water. So they should be pretty much good to go, I think, when it comes to those two. Now we've got to do the same for the other two. It looks like we've got this one done at the very least, and now we've just got to try to get the rest off of our Prestosuchus, who seems to have some lingering paint or whatever you want to call it on the figure. So there we go, that looks pretty good. Good enough, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and dry these guys off quickly and we'll check them out. So we've gone ahead and removed our little battle arena, and we can now see what the colors of our figures are. First of all, there's what our Piatnitzkysaurus looks like, which is okay. It's not really that great. Obviously, the very first version of this one was a bit better than what we see on this one. Kind of bland colors, but still super cool to see that one back. We also have our Stygimoloch, and you may notice some water and stuff on them here and there, because again, they just take a little bit of time to dry, and I tried dabbing them, but it seems like there's more water just popping up out of the joints that I can't quite get right now. So obviously we can see again that figure's got a pretty cool color scheme as well, but none of them are super exciting, it seems. But I will say that when it comes to like the Prestosuchus, I think that one actually looks pretty decent. You can see, you know, some okay colors, and it actually has color from head to tail, as well as like a drip of water coming off of its knee. Again, more water coming out of the joints, probably of the legs and stuff. And you will notice some of the color still remaining, which we can see like right here on the back of the tail. Some of the initial color is still kind of popping up on the figures, but that's probably because I should have most likely left them in just a little bit longer, but that's all right. It is what it is. And then, of course, we have our super cool Ceratopsy and the Einiosaurus, which does have actually a pretty flashy color scheme as far as these like almost lightning bolts up there in the frill of the dinosaur. But again, some pretty cool species choices for sure this time around. And I feel like the colors are a little bit more interesting on some of them than they were for the first round of color change figures. Again, the Dino Reveals from Mattel. But we're going to take a quick closer look at each of them just to kind of examine them, and then we'll check out the other play feature of the figures. So you can see when it comes to the Einiosaurus, of course it is the same figure sculpt-wise that we've had previously. There's no difference when it comes to this one and the previous versions, and I can't imagine there really being anything different when it comes to pretty much all of them compared to the first versions of these dinosaurs. But you can see, of course, the biggest difference is the colors of this one and the fact that it did change colors originally in general. But you can see we've got a light tone for the horn. We also have a yellow for the eye, but unfortunately no black pupil. The pupil is just the brown of the head. The head is a nice light brown, and then you have like these orange, almost again like lightning bolts moving up and over the frill. The spikes and everything, the horns over the frill, are not painted, unfortunately. As you move back into the body, you do see more of that light brown follow along the back and then start to kind of break up as it leads out and then disappears before we reach the tail. But then the coloration of the rest of the dinosaur is a very dark blue, which you can see. No painted nails or anything for these guys, which I wouldn't expect when it comes to something like this. The articulation isn't quite as impressive as you get on the mainline figures. You don't really have the ability to really go up or anything, or left and right, just basically swivel in the neck, and then of course the legs forward and back like standard Mattel figures, and then we also have a swivel for the tail. And you can see a little bit of dino damage kind of popping up right here, which is the other play feature of the figures. But we also of course have our Prestosuchus, which I would say is the nicest looking of all. You have a very dark kind of bluish tone for the upper body of the figure. You can see a sort of like a pinkish tone, or like almost bordering on a maroonish sort of tone there around the eye, and also a yellow eye. Again, unfortunately no black pupil, but we do have a I guess kind of like that same pinkish sort of pupil right there. We can see the inside of the mouth does at least sport some paintwork, as we have the teeth painted out a little sloppily, but painted with a light yellowish tone. And then we also have a nice pink for the tongue, and it also has a nice satin shine to it, as well as the skin stretching right there. You can see also features a pink tone as well as the satin shine. You do obviously have an articulated jaw, which you can see. There is no neck articulation on this one though, unfortunately. But as you move back into the body, you continue to see that darker blue move over the top of the figure and actually run the entire way out here into the tail, which is really cool. And then basically the lower body has this greenish tone, and it runs from the throat right until you reach the tail and then disappears. And that's pretty much it as far as this one goes. Actually, you do also have the lighter tone of the lower jaw, which I didn't mention. You do have like a light tan for the lower jaw. So when it comes to these figures, this one may actually have the most paintwork, which was a nice choice because, again, it's really exciting to see this species back again. And of course, it is the same articulation past the articulated jaw. You have articulated limbs and the swivel tail, and that's pretty much it as far as that goes. When it comes to our Stygimoloch, you can see it is basically like a really dark sort of maroonish tone of color, and then you have like a dark gray sort of there around the eye, and kind of circles around the eye and heads up toward the snout. You also have a green eye, and because we have that dark grayish tone there around the eye, that is the color that we get for the pupils, so it much closer resembles an actual pupil than some of the other ones have going on, so that's a plus for this figure. You do have some of the spikes in the back of the head painted with a dark gray, and then you have a light gray up here on the top, on the dome of our Stygimoloch. And then as you move back into the body, you basically just have that dark maroonish tone, and then some striping moving over the back with that dark gray. Starts basically at the bottom of the neck, and then ends as we reach out into the tail. And that's pretty much it as far as that one goes. Again, no other coloration outside of course, these injuries and stuff that these figures have. You, again, have the same articulation where it's on a swivel. I don't think we can go up and down now. Super basic articulation for the figures. You've got the arm, you've also got the leg articulation, and then again, the swivel tail. So that's pretty much all you have there. And then when it comes to our Piatnitzkysaurus, for the most part, this figure is going to look just as it did the last time around as far as the sculpt goes, but there is actually one new addition to this one that I do notice that is definitely a massive improvement over the older one, and that is the teeth. The teeth have a much sharper look on them compared to the older one. The older one definitely had more kind of like rounded teeth, whereas this one actually has sharper kind of pointed teeth. And to show you that, here is the older one, and you can now see when looking at the teeth on the newer one definitely look sharper compared to the older ones, which definitely had more of like a rounded sort of look to the teeth. You can see they're kind of bigger and bulkier, whereas the newer one has way better looking teeth. So a nice upgrade for this figure as far as that goes. Unfortunately, the paintwork definitely leaves a bit to be desired, because we basically have a grayish tone here in the face, and that's about it for the top part of the head outside of the eye. The eye is like a yellow, and it does actually look like we do have a black pupil, which is surprising. It's the only one besides the Stygimoloch in a way that really kind of had that treatment. You can actually see it's a nicely painted pupil as well. But then you also have a light tone, kind of like a light tan for the lower jaw. Of course, you do have an articulated jaw for the figure. You can see a pink for the inside of the mouth on the tongue, and the inside of the mouth on the upper side. So actually it gets a little bit of extra paintwork compared to the Prestosuchus. And then of course the teeth are painted with a light yellowish tone as well. And then as you move down into the body, that gray disappears and we transition to a brown, which is the primary body color of our figure. And then we have like this sort of reddish tone that moves over the top of this almost like slight sail-like area that we have for the figure. No other coloration really leading out into the tail except for that last little section of that kind of like sail-like look for the dinosaur. No coloration on the underside, no painted nails, nothing like that. So not really the greatest paintwork for this one, but I do definitely like the improvement of the new teeth on the figure. Again, we did see an articulated jaw. Unfortunately, no neck articulation. You do have arm articulation forward and back, leg articulation forward and back, and then of course a swivel tail. So a little bit of a downgrade as far as the articulation goes. If we bring in the old one, you can see it did actually have neck articulation, which is definitely a plus for that one. So I am actually noticing one other small difference between these two, and that is the fact that this like hanging skin here on the underside of the neck is slightly different compared to the older version, which you can see. The older version, because of the neck articulation, has a little bit of a different look, so I guess they had to resculpt that area out. But that's pretty much the only real difference that I can see outside of the teeth. So we've got our Einiosaurus here. We're going to go ahead and dip the sponge in some hot water, and I believe we just basically have to rub the hot water, onto the dinosaur, and it exposes a wound, which we can... Wow, that disappeared very quickly, which is odd. I thought the hot water was supposed to kind of bring it out. It was out very quickly and then disappeared like super fast. Maybe I'm doing this the wrong way. Let's go ahead and try it again. I think maybe we have to go with the cold water first and then bring it out with the hot water. I'm not sure. Now it's not working. So we're going to try this again. I may have made a mistake about doing this. I think I'm supposed to dab the dinosaur to bring the wound out. And it's still not coming out. So we did see it very briefly, but oddly enough, as quickly as it appeared, it then disappeared. And then it states that I'm supposed to apply cold water to kind of cover the wound up. But I don't know if this is just like a one-time thing and it's gone, or what's happening, because it's now gone completely. So we'll try the other figure, which actually still kind of is sporting the wound already. You can see it's already there. On the side of the stomach, which is the Stygimoloch. So we'll just go ahead and get some cold water, see if we can disguise or take away the wound here. Nope. So the wound stays, apparently. I don't know what is going on with these guys. They're supposed to kind of make the wound disappear. We'll try just hitting it with some hot water. I'll dry it quickly. Bring it back out. We'll dab it with some hot water, see if that changes anything. Not really. Nothing's really changing with the Stygimoloch, so I don't know. Maybe mine are defective or something. Cleaned it up again. We'll try it once more with the cold water just to see if it makes any sort of a difference when it comes to dabbing it. No, absolutely no difference. So I guess the Stygimoloch is just going to keep the wound. I don't think any of the others actually have any sort of a wound that will show up when you actually rub it on there. Like the packaging doesn't show it off anywhere. So we'll just kind of dab it all over the place and see if we can find anything on the figure. But I'm thinking it's just 2 of the 3. Yeah, if there is any sort of a wound on this one, it's definitely not showing up. So the first part of the figures, when it comes to changing the colors, does work pretty well. The second part of the playability of these doesn't work so well, because one figure continues to keep the dino damage up, and the other figure briefly showed it to us, and then it disappeared, and now we can't get it back. So I don't know, but either way, what I do know is that they're still pretty fun. So another round of Mattel Dino Reveal color-changing figures, and these guys are pretty fun as well. I'm definitely happy that I was able to actually snag all 4 of these from Amazon, you know, straight out of the gate, rather than getting 2 of the same 2-pack or something, and then just having 2 of the same figures. That would definitely have been a bummer. I don't know if, you know, the person that was packaging them from Amazon just realized what I was trying to do and hooked me up, or if it was purely by accident. I don't know, but I was lucky enough to get all 4 of these new figures, again, right away. They are 2-packs. They retail for about $20, so you do get 2 dinosaurs for $20, and I like the fact that each one of the sets has kind of, well, in a way, more common dinosaurs in the Mattel line, and then another one that's a lot more obscure that we've only really had one figure of previously, like the Piatnitzkysaurus and Prestosuchus. We've only had one of each of those prior, whereas the Einiosaurus we've had a few times, and the Stygimoloch we've had about a bajillion times. So definitely nice that they gave us a few of the more obscure Mattel dinos in here, giving us new versions, and even some slightly resculpted versions, like the Piatnitzkysaurus having a different look to the throat skin there, as well as the teeth, which is definitely a plus for the figure. None of them are overly amazing when it comes to the paint apps or colors, but I feel like they do look better than the first round of these that we had seen, and of course they do have the entire fun aspect of color changing them. If you do have kids, I could definitely see kids really quite enjoying these figures as far as that goes, but even as an adult collector, it is still neat to be able to get some brand new color variants of these figures, especially the more obscure species. They do, of course, again, also feature some articulation, but it's really quite basic, and the figures as a whole, in general, are fairly basic, as there's not really much going on with them, outside of, again, the color changing aspect. As I said previously, I really would have liked to have been able to have like some sort of a color changing version where you change them back and forth. It is only a one-time thing. Once they change colors, that's it. They then stay those colors, except for the dino damage aspect is supposed to change, I think, back and forth, but it's not really working too well for me. Either way, if you are interested in grabbing these and adding them to your collection, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine on Amazon.com. So make sure you check that link, grab them if you want them, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.